Supereminent wasn't just an idea for an e-commerce store or a clothing line. It was a deeply personal, burning necessity to build a monument against the erosion of human identity. Look out the window and scroll through a timeline, and the cultural disease is glaringly obvious, a systematic, quiet epidemic of low self-esteem, low value, and low self-worth. The modern landscape had become an expert at teaching people how to shrink. It taught them to minimize their presence, to apologize for their ambitions, and to view themselves through the lens of their limitations rather than their potential. The goal was to create a total inversion of that reality. The vision demanded a brand name that could act as a psychological anchor, not a passive label, and certainly not a generic trendy sequence of letters designed to look cool on a screen for 6 months before dissolving into irrelevance. It needed to be a word that carried immense physical and mental mass. A word that could be worn like a boundary line, forcing the person inside it to stand entirely upright, to square their shoulders, and to look at their own reflection with an absolute unshakable sense of pride. It had to be a lofty word, a majestic, uncompromising title that could actively identify with stepping out of the low-value conditioning of the world and into a higher state of self-esteem. The foundational spark for the name started with a single concept: supreme. The idea of supremacy was exactly the right frequency. It wasn't about dominating others or stepping on anyone else. It was about the absolute supremacy of the self over the circumstance. It was about reaching the highest possible authority in your own life, commanding your focus, ruling your execution, and refusing to allow the environment to dictate your your internal value. But the word supreme itself was already occupied, diluted and worn out by the fast-moving currents of commercial culture. It had lost its architectural weight. To find the true title, the search had to go deeper into the precise mechanics of language. The browser was open to the Merriam-Webster Online Thesaurus, the digital query where raw language is mined. The fingers hit the keys, typing those 7 letters into the search bar: SUPREME. The cursor blinked, the enter key was pressed. Instantly, the screen populated with a long, dense column of text. A flood of synonyms, derivatives, and definitions cascaded down the page. The eye scanned past the standard offerings: paramount, sovereign, peerless, utmost, ultimate. They were strong, functional words, but none of them possessed the exact, specific gravity required for the vision. They didn't hit the chest. They didn't feel like iron. They felt like descriptions, not declarations. The scroll continued down the page, moving past the common language, descending into the heavier, more authoritative layers of the lexicon. And then the scrolling stopped. There, nestled quietly in the middle of the digital page, actually off to the left a little bit, the word appeared: supereminent. The effect was instantaneous, like a sudden drop in barometric pressure before a massive storm. Time in the room felt like it completely locked in place. The eyes fixed onto those 12 letters, tracing the sharp geometric architecture of the typography. Supereminent. The mind broke the word down in a fraction of a second, analyzing its linguistic anatomy. It wasn't just a word, it was a structural masterpiece. It took the prefix super, the concept of going above, beyond, and exceeding all existing limits, and fused it directly to eminent, a word denoting high station, prominence, and a towering presence that cannot be ignored. Combined, it created an entirely new tier of meaning. It didn't just mean top tier, it meant standing completely distinct above even the highest tier. It was a word that demanded a high renaissance level of devotion to form, mixed with an uncompromising heavy grit. In that exact silent moment, the internal dialogue ceased. There was no need for a committee, no need for market testing, and no need to ask for anyone else's validation. I thought to myself, that's it. It was a total, absolute recognition. The search was over because the true name of the standard had finally revealed itself. The word supereminent perfectly encapsulated the entire mission. It was a direct, violent strike against low self-worth. You could not utter the word without feeling the elevation of its tone. It was designed specifically for individuals who refused to be light, disposable. In other words, lightweight, disposable, or easily moved by the opinions of the crowd. It was the ultimate positive, lofty banner for a new faction, a collective of creators, builders, and unyielding minds who chose to esteem themselves highly, regardless of how much weight the world tries to throw onto their backs. When that name was selected, the entire trajectory of the brand was cemented. It dictated the heavy 300 GSM cotton silhouettes. It dictated the deep matte steel monograms. It dictated the creation of an exclusive society that doesn't cater to the masses, but instead builds a permanent monument for those who hold the line. Every single garment that carries those 12 letters is an extension of that exact discovery. It is a physical reminder of the moment a line was drawn in the sand, rejecting the low-value noise of modern culture, and choosing instead to build an empire on a foundation of absolute supreme excellence. Supereminent. The standard was found, the name was chosen, and the architecture of the future was set in stone. Until next time, peace.